Hey Tatooine Sons family, this is Sam. Today's episode is all about Mando Season 3, where we left off, some interesting comments from Favreau, and what we can expect to see. This is Tatooine Sons.
It's true. All of it.
What is the name of the porg on the Millennium Falcon?
Force is strong in my family.
What do you think his name is? It's a big moment.
I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
Maybe Turbis?
Do or do not. There is no try.
Turbis? Pablo, if you're listening to this live stream, that porg's name is now Turbis. It's a good Star Wars name.
We're not done yet.
These guys recorded an awesome podcast called Tatooine Sons. Everybody listen to it.
Right lately. Which performance do you like best so far, Joel or Din?
I'm going to let Nathan go first.
We've had a lot of... We've had more Pedro with Joel than we have.
That's fair.
Din.
That's absolutely true.
So I'm going to say Joel.
Okay.
Because... especially that last episode that we saw with him and Tommy. I mean, his performance was absolutely outstanding in that episode. There were so many moments when I was just like, dang, this guy can act.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was crazy.
You know, Pedro Pascal, we don't watch Game of Thrones, so I didn't see him when he was in that. So my experience with him has been the few moments that we've seen him in Mando and then Wonder Woman 84.
Yes.
Which is a very different character.
Very much than
just
either
a little
of
bit.
us.
And then I think we didn't watch Narcos. He was in that with
he was in
Diego Luna.
And then there was the Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent.
Yeah, he was
great.
Yeah.
He was great.
He was fun in that.
I really have liked the character of Joel in this, and I'm hoping we get to see more of him as Din Djarin versus the Mando. So we'll see.
Yeah. All right, well, let's get into kind of where we left off since we've last seen our characters in The Mandalorian.
In Book of Boba Fett.
Well, in
Mando season 2.5.
Mando season 2.5. Right,
exactly.
We left off where Grogu rejected Luke's proposal to train. He decided he wanted to be with his daddy. So they reunited and stuff after a little bit of training for Grogu.
So we got some Jedi.
So we got some Jedi stuff there. There's still some contention, although while this wasn't really shown in the Book of Boba Fett much, this is more what we saw in season 2 of Mando. There's some contention between him and Bo-Katan right now. There's some really,
and you can see that in the trailers coming up.
Yeah, there's some bad blood. She feels like she deserves the Darksaber, but he technically has the right to right now because he won in a combat. So that's, there's some tension there. And then we saw this in the Book of Boba Fett. He's gotten a quest from the armor because we know in his sect, the Watcher, I'm trying to remember.
The Covert?
The Covert,
it's a big no-no for you to show your face, right? That's like kind of the whole plot of the first
Isn't that
season,
the way?
right?
Isn't that what they call this?
The way, right. And then obviously we know he did that, and he's got to make up for it. So she sent him on a quest to go to Mandalore, to the healing waters, or
basically to be rebaptized.
To be
Go to the river. He's going to get baptized.
That's a good way to put it.
He's going to come out and
I didn't think about that.
Be a changed man,
born anew,
born again.
Yeah,
and Grogu's going to
hallelujah. This is the way.
So what do you
have that be your next sermon?
Please, throw as many Mando references in there as you can. Oh my goodness. What do you think? Are we going to see, this like a battle, for lack of better terms, between Bo-Katan and Mando? Like, do you think that we're going to see them really go toe to toe?
Yes, 100%.
Really?
Bo-Katan is just stuck up.
Oh my gosh!
I mean, I feel like I've earned this right, but genuinely though, Mando has,
but she never
the
earned
right.
it.
She
Right.
never earned it.
Right.
Mando right now has every right to be wielding the dark
She
saber.
just feels like she deserves it because she
of
was
the bloodline,
the sister to the
that's
Duchess.
it. That's the only reason.
Satine,
And so
yeah.
I think that she'll be very cocky and really want to have that dark saber to the point where she will do. I feel like she is the antagonist of this season.
Not a
we
bad
don't, We don't
guy,
know
but-
who else would
Yeah.
be that antagonist. We know Moff Gideon's still alive.
Well, I've got the answers to all of this.
and
I'll
all
let you
this.
finish
So,
it.
but
Oh, you do.
you got the answers.
I know what's going to happen.
Okay.
Okay.
Are we going to the predictions?
No,
Should we go home?
no. Are we doing that in this episode?
Well, we are. Yeah.
Okay.
So maybe
But-
hold off on it if it's.
Well, here's
that
what I'll tell you
level.
about my thoughts on Bo-Katan, right? Bo-Katan didn't earn the Darksaber in combat, which is the normal protocol with this. But she thinks she's truly a Mandalorian, right? She's
Right.
a Mandalorian by blood. She's a
Right.
Mandalorian by, family line. She grew up on Mandalore. She served the Mandalorian. So she may look at Din Djarin as being he won it in combat, but he's not Mandalorian. She doesn't believe that. She thinks he's part of this weird religious cult,
Right.
This weird religious sect. So she doesn't believe he can lead this. So while
She's
they
kind of, for lack of a better term, racist. Like she didn't like Boba Fett because he wasn't a real clone, like a real Mandalorian.
I think it's a way, and we talk about this on the show all the time. It's a way to deal with big real world issues in a fantasy world where you can have conversations about that.
It removes you from the real world sting of it and allows you to really just focus on the topic itself. In a way.
Yeah, absolutely. So I do think that they're going to be at odds with each other. I think we see that some in the trailers, which I've only watched the trailers like once.
Yeah, once or twice for me. I haven't watched them much.
But we see that in the trailers. I mean, it's not like we're doing breakdown videos of trailers and stuff like that. We'll leave that
Not
to Star
anymore.
Wars Explained.
Not
and
anymore.
Crush
That
and
was
all.
The guys who are much better
That was a dark
at it than us.
period of
It
our
was.
show.
So they're going to be at odds, but I think, and this I'll save this for the predictions sure to go wrong. That's
Okay.
going to be there later. Okay.
Are you sure it's going to go wrong?
I don't believe it's going to go wrong, but I'll save the predictions
Okay.
because they always do go wrong. There's something that's going to bring them together, but we'll go with that.
Okay,
So.
interesting. The main plot of this season is him going to Mandalore to.
So exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the
It
last
feels
time,
like we're finally with Mandalorian now, not Grogu.
Yeah, I mean that is one thing that I've noticed from these trailers is we've gotten Mandalore, which the last time we saw this was in Rebels. Am I correct? So exciting to see more from animation.
I mean, we saw
coming
some
down.
bits of this in the Book of Boba Fett or Mandalorian season 2.5.
A couple flashbacks,
Yeah,
but I mean, we didn't go to the location to see to this planet, right? And then lots of Mandalorians in the trailers. I mean, they've been like a highlight of this. So, do you think that this is kind of going to be the culmination of this story for Mandalorian? Like, this is kind of the I don't want to say the climax because there's
Are you saying
still
this is like
season
the third
4.
act of this chapter of the story?
Like this is
kind of
there may
first
be
book
multiple
of-
trilogies of the Mandalorian, and this is the climax of the first trilogy.
They have been calling each of the episodes chapters, so that is something we need to take into account
with a separate book.
Right. So
The Book of Boba Fett.
right, it's an anthology book, right?
Yeah.
Because it's still tied in,
It's definitely
very tied in.
but yeah, you wouldn't know what was going on if you didn't read that book. But it's due to it being called chapters. I do feel like this is like the first book of the Mandalorian. These first 3 seasons are probably going to be that, all those chapters leading up to that point, and then the next stories are going to be talking about more of him going out into the universe, not as a tight knit kind of story as we've seen. It's been really focused on Mandalorian, on Grogu. It's been, but kind of seeing a larger world of this Mando verse. I mean, we are getting Ahsoka, we are getting Skeleton Crew now, we are maybe getting Rangers of the Republic. Who knows if that's
that
still
one's
a thing.
basically been eliminated.
But we're getting all of these shows in the Mando verse that will allow it to be able to be expanded on after this season. And so I don't want to see Mandalorian have a curse of too many seasons and not ending when it should. Because
Well, if you look back though on we know Dave Filoni is right there working with Jon Favreau on
Yes.
this the entire time, right? And so I think that the formula from Rebels is what's going to be playing out in this. So it was a 4-season story in Rebels. When you got to season 3, things started to kind of get focused in on what was happening on Lothal even more extensively.
Yeah.
Things got more focused in on Ezra and Kanan. All of those things started to happen, which led to season 4 being the culmination of all of that. I think that's what's going on. You talk about this as being like the third part of or like the end of the first book or something like that. I kind of view each season as its own book with that in the way that I do it. But I think that in the end, what you're saying is really, really accurate.
Yeah, I like that. So in a recent interview, and I forgot to note
Vanity Fair, Variety, Hollywood Reporter.
It was one of those.
Okay,
so it was covered it.
One of those websites.
One of those really famous websites that is way better than us, and they get these cool interviews. But Favreau was
we turned down John.
Yeah,
we're too busy for Jon Favreau.
Oh my word! If only. Oh man. But he got asked a few questions, and one of the questions was like, Grogu's in an interesting position. I'm heavily paraphrasing here.
Good. That we don't have to cite the account.
Right. This may be completely wrong because I'm just doing
just kind of making it up as you go.
Yeah, it's a great question and answer in my head, so we're gonna go.
We'll go with it. It's ChatGPT
in my brain. So the interviewer was like, Grogu's in a very interesting position. He is a Jedi to an extent, but also a Mandalorian, right? He clearly gave up on the Jedi religion to go be with his dad. And while historically Jedi and Mando have been at odds for a lot of it, they work together at times. You know, we see that in Rebels. But historically, I mean, the whole reason a lot of the Mandalorians have the gear they have is because it was designed to counteract the abilities of a Jedi, right?
Correct.
So he's like, do you think that Grogu could kind of be this bridge, this gap, right? And Favreau was like, that's a very astute observation, actually. He said that, I'm pretty sure in quote, like for
almost
real.
verbatim.
Almost verbatim. Astute was in there, and it was a cool word. It stuck with me.
Word for word, sort of.
Word for word, except the words I missed.
Okay.
Got it.
But he was like, yeah, there's Grogu is in a very interesting position. So what do you guys think that how this will play into the story? Do you think we're going to see that kind of duality of Grogu manifesting in this, you know, having him trained with Luke and now with Ahsoka coming up soon? Do you think that we're going to see these ties kind of coming back together between the Jedi and the Mandalorians in this season?
Maybe to a very small degree, but I don't even think we see it kind of get to that point where there's a bridge between them in this series at all. Okay. Because if there becomes a bridge between Mandalorians and Jedi, and that starts to get out that, you know, Jedi and Mandalorians are kind of okay now, and that means that the Empire is going to catch wind that there are still Jedi out there.
Well, this is after.
They're starting.
This is
after Order 66, and so
after Luke Skywalker and the end of the Empire, which is okay,
but still, First Order and all this stuff. It's not a good idea. So I don't know if we'll ever see that happen. But the thing is we don't know a lot between episode 6 and 7. So who knows? Maybe there was a Mando Jedi covert, which would be awesome. I'd love to see it, but I don't think we see it soon, at least.
I mean, my crazy speculative imagination wants me to see Grogu take up the Darksaber. But that's just not going to happen.
No. Well, it's physically he cannot handle it. Maybe they'll take the crystal out and make like a mini Darksaber for him.
That would be a lot of fun. But I do think that Grogu's going to be the bridge somehow between the Mandalorians and the Jedi, and I don't know what that looks like. The challenge that we run into is what you just brought up about, yes, we don't know a lot between episode 6 and episode 7. We don't have a ton of that, but we do have enough. We have the, you know, what's going on in The Force Awakens, but we also have some of the canon novels and the comic books and things like that. Right. And the reality is this story doesn't impact the sequel trilogy at all. From what we can tell.
Well, there is the whole cloning arc.
But I'm talking about like the Mandalorian portion of
that. Those predictions yet, right. Sammy. You can't steal
he's making a good point. But the Mandalorian portion of it doesn't impact this. And so I feel like the Mandalorians something has got to happen to separate them from the greater universe. And I think that they're either going to go away or they're going to become kind of relegated to the ash heap of history. I mean, I don't know what's gonna happen with them, but I can't imagine it's gonna have huge implications when it comes to the Mandalorians on the future. Maybe Grogu, maybe the Force, maybe cloning, but not the Mandalorian.
Okay, interesting. Another question mentioned that the season 4 is in production, right? It's well on its way.
Like he's written the scripts and everything.
Right.
Yeah.
And he's like, will season 4 be the end? And Favreau's like, no, I actually don't see season 4 being the end. He's like, I actually see this as a story that can go on for a long time. We see these characters in many different lights. He's like, I want to see these characters long term.
Really?
So season 4 in my mind is definitely not the end.
Wow.
So
that's awesome.
It goes both ways in my mind. It's awesome because we're getting more of them and we love this. I love these stories. I love these characters. But, I think you kind of mentioned this, Nate. It might go a little too far and start hurting itself, right? Now, there have been instances in Star Wars where something can go for a long time and do great, i.e. Clone Wars.
Yeah,
Clone Wars
is 7 seasons.
Yeah, and nobody has any complaints about that show, right? So
Droid arc, though.
It's not like, that doesn't mean that there's missed episodes. No. I mean, Star Wars already hasn't had a perfect track record with shows, even like Book of Boba Fett and stuff, So what do you guys think about the fact that this won't be a 4-season story, that this is going to go on for as long as they see fit?
Yeah, I'm obviously surprised because I did not know that. I did not know that. And excited to see where it goes. But my same concern that I mentioned in my last answer now applies even more. We don't have the Mandalorians at all in the storylines that we have leading up to the First Order, or the storylines that we have leading up to the Force Awakens and things like that. So where does this storyline veer away from the traditional stories that we've heard before?
I mean, a counter argument to that is the only thing we saw about Mandalorians and cloning in the original trilogy, granted, I know it came out before the prequels and stuff, but you get my point. The only thing we saw was Boba Fett and one line from Obi-Wan about the Clone Wars. Well, that was the entire premise of the prequels, right? So just because the Mandalorians are a huge part of this part of Star Wars history, right, doesn't mean that we're necessarily going to see them in the limited window that we had of.
Sure. And I mean, but they're going to have to thread a needle to make it work.
No, absolutely. I think you're right. But they threaded the needle with the prequels, so they can do it again.
They did. But I'm just wondering if it keeps going and keeps, having spin-off shows and has so many seasons. Well, eventually we have to know, where does this story fit in? Why are we having this much Star Wars content, and does it really fit into the Star Wars universe? Because really what we're wanting right now from these shows, at least personally I am wanting backstory on some of the questions I have in the sequel trilogy. We haven't really gotten many answers to those questions, and even at this point they're adding more and more questions than they are answering any of them. And so it's kind of getting to this point, okay, are we going to get to season 7 and still not know where this is going? Because that's a gripe I have about Bad Batch. We're on season 2, halfway through, and I'm still wondering, okay, well, why are we watching the Bad Batch? Why are we having this show? So I'm wondering if eventually I'm going to start having that question about the Mandalorian. Why are we still watching this? What's the point of it? What is going to keep me going?
It's Star Wars, and we watch
exactly. And I love the Mandalorian. It's great, but. And I'm of course I'm excited for Ahsoka. I mean, that's going to be fantastic as well. Skeleton Crew is an interesting concept. So there's enough to keep me going. But when it comes to the Bad Batch, the last 2 episodes were very much filler episodes. And so if we keep having those types, it's going to get to the point okay, well, I had to wait a week for this. And now I just got to hope I don't get that again in the next week. So there. I'm just saying
I get your
point. Want to see this succeed.
It can be too much of a good thing sometimes.
Exactly.
Yeah. One other question to Favreau was, so far The Mandalorian has been known for internet breaking moments, right? You've got first episode of first season. Wow, there's another species or another creature in the same species as Yoda, right?
Correct.
And then
the last episode we saw. Can you believe that? It was the last episode we saw was the Luke Skywalker episode.
Right, yeah. I mean, and that, again, broke
so long ago.
the internet, right? So the interviewer was like, is that, going to happen in season 3? And Favreau was like, I hope it does. I'm hoping we get that. And he's like, and that's another reason why I love the weekly format, right? Is it gives people a chance to speculate and talk about. He even said he likes the virtual dinner table conversations, which I thought was cool.
Exactly what we do,
because that's why we started this podcast. Was our dinner table conversations about Star Wars?
Sometimes
right?
those virtual dinner table conversations can get a little heated, though.
Yeah, that's because they're virtual. But he's like,
great.
That's why I love the weekly release, because you get a movie, there's hype leading up to it, there's talk after, and then that's it, unless they release another movie, right? This gives you a week. So
it's awesome.
It is.
That's what we look forward to, and why we love doing this.
So we'll have to be curious to see what the breaking the internet thing is again. But let's get into some kind of some predictions and sure to go wrong, what we'd like to see. Do either of y'all have a prediction?
Well, I already teased that I've got one.
Okay.
I don't know if I have any predictions sure to go wrong, but one of the things I'm very excited to see is Grogu now being more fluent in using the Force. Mm-hmm. He's starting to use it like in everyday things, like to spin his chair and grab some snacks. It's really it's
cool.
Cute.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting to see how that comes into play later on and how that comes into help the Mandalorian and how he uses that. It's going to be interesting to see how Din reacts to that, because he doesn't really fully understand what the Force is, and now this 50-year-old baby is using it on a daily basis.
A weird sense. Only in Star Wars, a 50-year-old
baby. It's going to be very interesting to see how Din reacts to it. It's going to be really awesome to see how Grogu uses it and interacts with it, and maybe we get some more answers about where Grogu came from. I know we're going to be seeing that flashback for Order 66 from his eyes. We got that. Maybe we'll see more of like a full-on flashback, be able to see more of it, who helped him, all that stuff. Maybe that'll be another storyline that we can see go forwards in season 4.
Yeah, as far as the prediction goes, I talked earlier about Bo-Katan and Din Djarin being on opposite sides of this issue and sort of being, I think Grogu gets caught up in between because of some of the stuff we saw in the trailers with Bo-Katan taking Grogu on Mandalore and that kind of stuff. So I'm curious to see how that all plays out, or even how that happens. But I do think that Moff Gideon and what will turn into the First Order and cloning and all of that stuff ends up playing a major role in this season again. And because it plays such a major role, Bo-Katan and Din Djarin are going to have to unite forces against what's happening on that, and that's going to help bring them together, and we'll see some resolution too. Yeah,
that's pretty similar to my prediction. And my prediction was that Mando kind of leads like a Mandalorian war against some of the final remnants of the Empire, right? Not necessarily completely destroying them, but finally driving them into the level of hiding we see in the sequel trilogy before the First Order shows up, right? Because like the Empire's largely completely gone,
right?
By the time we get to Episode 7. And
so I got a question for you guys. Like speculative for season 3.
Okay,
do we get Grogu's first words?
I hope so.
Dada.
So you think so?
That'd be great.
Adorable.
But that would break the internet.
It would break the internet.
That would do it. Yeah.
Not because it's like a really important, impactful moment for Star Wars, just because it's cute, and that's really what Grogu has done.
That's
for the internet.
Whole reason 100%. He went back to his daddy was because Lucasfilm was like, "That is a marketing nightmare if we don't get him back." He is a cash cow. We need him back with his dad.
Kathleen Kennedy sitting there with Jon Favreau after season 2 and like, all right, that was great, but
get him back.
We're not doing that.
But like,
make an entire show if you have to get him back. Exactly. I don't care. Just get him back.
Do you think we have the chance of seeing the Ghost Crew try to recruit Mando to help their search with Thrawn and Ezra?
Who knows?
At the end of this season,
I don't think so. I think they leave that storyline for.
Well, I thought the same thing for Book of Boba Fett, but obviously that didn't work out. So
we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah. All right.
I am your father.
Hey, Tatooine Sons fam, this is David with this week's Dad Moment. I want to focus on a couple of points that came out in this episode's conversation that might seem like they're unrelated. but I actually think they're important to connect. First, Sam and Nate both focused on the division between Din Djarin and Bo-Katan. And that division is over a lot of different things: religion, race, ambition. And I mentioned that I believe that Din and Bo will come together before the end of season 3 and lay aside their differences because they face a common enemy. And that connects to the second item discussed. And it was when Jon Favreau said that he loves this virtual dinner table conversation element about The Mandalorian. Here's how these two connect. We can't put aside our differences if we can't learn how to have real conversations about the things that we disagree with. If Din and Bo actually do come together, it will only happen after they have some resolution to their very complicated issues. And while we love to debate Star Wars and theories and rumors, it's even better when we come together and talk about important things that we disagree on. So go find somebody you disagree with about something trivial like Star Wars and sit down with them, have a healthy, respectful conversation about it. And then maybe after seeing that this can actually be done, we can start to take steps to have conversations about things that really matter. Thank you so much for listening to the show. You can follow us on any podcast app out there: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Audible, Pandora, and any of them. Just find us on there. And then while you're there following the show, take a second to give us a rating or a review on that app if that app has the element to it on there. And then while you're doing all of that, follow us on social media. You can follow us on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and YouTube and do this. And then share the show with somebody else. Maybe somebody you disagree with something trivial like Star Wars about. Maybe you guys can use this as a common ground to have a conversation about something like that. We certainly appreciate it. Thank you again for listening to the show. We'll be back next week with another episode. And until then,
may the Force be with you always.
This party's over.
I like that Wookiee.
Don't get technical with me.
Join, please.
Yep, yep.